Welcome everybody to Primal Trust. Today we are going to be talking about the fawning response. So this is just a class on learning about one of the ways that our nervous system can cause us to go into protection when we are stuck in a sympathetic overdrive. So I'll get into what that means in a moment. So I had to use this cute little picture of a fawn to describe the fawning response, because it's kind of what it's like. Our legs are kind of wobbly. We can stand, but we're not really standing in our power. So we're really going to explore what it means to be in the fawning response. Okay, so this class is also a class for all levels, but I'll probably be talking about some concepts that are a little more level 2, level 3. But I think it'll be appropriate for everyone listening. Okay, the fawning response. What is the fawning response? And okay, someone said my volume is a little low. Is other people feeling the same way? Let me move my microphone a little bit. Does it still sound okay? All right. So some people say yes, some people say no. Hopefully this is okay. I got my microphone right here. All right. So what is the fawning response? Well, it is the sympathetic dominance in our nervous system acting out a type of attachment trauma, a way of relating to others in a way that's not really authentic for us, but more of a survival response. So we're going to talk about what that means. This is, again, it's a protection response and a survival strategy. So as I start to describe the fawning response, you're going to recognize that it might seem like it's a behavior that's actually often very socially acceptable. So let's just see what you guys think as we go along. Is anyone here in the class not familiar with what the fawning response means? Or is this the first time you've ever heard it? And if that's the case, put a 1 in the chat box so that I can get an idea. Okay, so there's a couple of you who haven't heard of this. Well, good, few of you. Well, this is a good class. It's really important. This is truly one of the most important things that you can learn about. If what I start to describe sounds like you, then this is a response you really want to learn about, because it is an aspect of a protective behavior that's actually pretty unhealthy and can really cause your nervous system to be all tightly wound up, although it's often a very socially acceptable way of behaving. So let's get into a little more of what that means. I see someone says, I looked it up before class and I am it. Yeah. So when you realize that this might be you, this is a really big thing. And as I've said, I'm going to be coming out with a whole new level 1 program called Regulate. It's in process. And we're going to be talking a lot about the polyvagal theory and how different ways of responding as our normal set point are actually a chronic stress response. And the fawning response is a chronic stress response. So let's get a little more into it here. Fawning is people pleasing, saying yes when you mean no. So for those of you who just typed a 1 in the chat box, if this was new, does this describe you? Saying yes when you mean no. That is a protection and a survival strategy. I see some people are like 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Yeah. So this is often something when you come in contact with, when you come in contact with this information, it can be life-changing. Fawning response also means poor boundaries and a decreased awareness of your personal boundary. Okay. It also means that you can't find your feelings, or you have to look to others to make choices. How many of you, when you can't make a choice and you call up a parent or a friend, or you just let your partner make the choice for you because it's easier? I see more 1s in the chat box. Yeah. And how many of you can't even find how you feel, right? Almost like a disconnect from, like, maybe you're emotional all the time, but when you say, hey, what do you think about this or feel about this? You can't find it. That would be an example of the fawning response. Okay. So what else? It's also, and this is a really big one and going to be one of the big points of class today, The fawning response is withholding of your personal truth. This results in a lack of integrity and this lack of your inner authority and a lack of personal power. So people pleasing, we think we're being the good girl, but you're actually out of integrity. And some people might even say you're lying. Go that far. This really affects your body, your energy field. And again, I'm going to explain a little bit more about why that happens. But take a moment to really take this in. When you are people pleasing, saying yes when you mean no, can't find your feelings, have poor boundaries, it's a lack of truth. It's a lack of truth for yourself and for others. The fawning response it's a person who has a deep fear of conflict, of rejection, of abandonment, and of separation. So we're starting to get into why our nervous system might decide, or really our inner psyche that's running our nervous system, that we're better off and safer agreeing, not speaking up, and keeping the peace. These are often the peacemakers in different situations because they're afraid of the conflict we'll get into why this happens, afraid of rejection. So it's aspects of your personality that are sympathetic nervous system dominant, that are just trying to keep you safe, trying to keep you in connection at all costs, even if you lose yourself, even if it means you stay sick, you stay stuck, you stay in self-hate, at least you're in connection. That's the trade-off here. And we're going to really discuss that trade-off so you can become so aware of the trade-off that you might be making if this is you, that you recognize it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. Okay. So a few other things. You're prone to codependency in relationship if you are stuck in a fawning response of the sympathetic nervous system. This is where we're commonly attracted to partners who display the opposite characteristics. And this might mean like it's a partner who always says what they want and actually runs the show and doesn't really even ask you about your feelings, because on some level you're actually afraid to speak them. So it's easier to just attract a dominant partner, or sometimes we just end up having dominant friends if we're more prone to fawning. And it's another thing about fawning is that the social acceptance is a huge inner drive of somebody with the fawning behavior, if you will. So how many of you here feel like you're a fawner? Put a 1 in the chat box. Let's see how many people relate to this. We've got about 60 people on the call. Let's see how many ones we've got. Wow, dozens, dozens of ones here. So it looks like a majority of people in this class relate to this. Someone says, I'm recovering from this. Right. Yeah. So do you see how huge this issue is? It's a big pattern that I see in those that end up in chronic illness, chronic like Lyme disease, chronic limbic system impairment type of personalities. They have a fawning personality that gets developed as a coping strategy. So remember, it's a coping strategy, and that means that it can change. Okay. Let's talk about how this response gets learned by the nervous system. Okay. Well, first of all, let me go into this because I think this might be a little better to understand first. So what are the other sympathetic dominant responses? I just said fawning is one of them. The sympathetic response of the nervous system, if you've studied the polyvagal theory, which I talk a lot about in level 1 and understanding that, are different aspects of the way that we respond. Are we stressed? Are we in connection? Are we shut down? So sympathetic nervous system is, I'm not okay. It's a feeling of not being okay deep inside of us. And the typical stress responses of the sympathetic dominant state are fight, flight, fawn, Find, I know some of you are like, what's that? And freeze. And freeze is actually a combination. It's not purely sympathetic. And a lot of people say fight, fight, freeze for sympathetic dominance. And that's actually incorrect. I'm going to explain that one too in a moment. Okay, so we've got fight. Some people are the fighters. They're hypervigilant. They're excessively trying. They're aggressive. And you might have a combination of all of these, right? But I'm just going to describe them. This is the person that can get into yelling and rage and tightness in the body. And sometimes we all go there. Some people are more dominant in a fight or a protector, or maybe some people label them as narcissistic. Okay. This is more of a, I need to fight for my safety, but it's a protection response. And it's on the same line as the fawner. It's not any worse. They're not any more evil. It's part of a coping strategy that is just as dysfunctional as the fawn. And so we'll talk about that again. The flight is anxiety and panic, avoiding, running away, fear, crime. That's often very intermingled with the fawning response. The world is unsafe, restless, and you might have things like insomnia. The fawning response, people pleasing, no boundary, won't speak your own truth, fear of rejection and abandonment. Find, people don't talk about this very much, but it's another response. This is the wanting to be rescued personality. You want to find safety outside of yourself. How many people in here are finding as part of their survival strategy? This is highly related to fawning, but it's looking for rescue. Yeah. So some people are doing that as well. And that can also result in the codependency trauma patterns. And in Primal Trust, that's what we're working on rewiring a lot of, is finding rescue within you, right? In Primal Trust, in your own inner adult. And then freeze. Freeze is actually a combination of both a sympathetic dominance and a dorsal vagal state of immobility, when you want to basically run and hide at the same time. That can result in freeze, and that can also result in what we would commonly call chronic fatigue syndrome, which is your foot is on the gas and the brake at the same time. So it's actually a combination response. It's not purely sympathetic dominant. So I just wanted to go over a little bit of that for people who are newer to the sympathetic dominant stress response of the nervous system. Either way, underlying responses, I'm not okay. And these are all different trauma responses and protective responses. All right. And so it's important to recognize that when people are in these responses, they're just trying to find safety, maybe in a dysfunctional way. Okay, so let's now talk about how this response gets learned by the nervous system. Okay. So the fawn response is a reaction that can often start as a child or even a teenager that might feel like their only chance of surviving and acceptance is by reducing the threats around them or to please people. So again, remember, the fawn response wants to avoid all conflict, and therefore they will accommodate everyone else's needs in place of their own. So this child might have experienced abuse, or maybe experienced neglect, or have been subjected or witnessed violence, or have a parent or a caregiver that's in their own trauma response. They're self-focused and lacking empathy. Maybe they're highly critical and this person just wants to please them. So there's a lot of even cultures out there that end up producing the fawn response because there's so much pressure to be perfect, to be good, to be, accepted. And so some of the early characteristics of children who develop this fawning coping strategy, remember it's a coping strategy, are being overly agreeable, trying to please people, right? Trying to please people. Being extremely helpful. That can be a protection response. Trying to calm a situation, excessive caring for others. I know even my daughter, she, as a very young one, when I was so sick and really dysfunctional, she was always trying to calm the situation. At 2 years old, she was starting to fawn. Being unable or unwilling to express their emotions, their thoughts or feelings. So if children, if you ask them how they feel and they're like, I don't know, that's because they're starting to fawn. unable to say no. And often it can lead to disassociation even early in age. So these are some of the ways that the fawning response occurs. So stop that for a moment. Okay. So how in the world do you stop trying to fawn, right? It sounds like a lot of you really relate to this response. And it's one of the most important things that you can learn how to find empowerment with that's going to help your body and your nervous system and your health. So really pay attention to this class today. And honestly, there's so much that could be taught about this response that it would take several classes. So I'm trying to really take a huge chunk of information and give it to you in as like neatly packed way as I can, so that you at least have something to go with here. Someone asked, explain symptoms of dissociation. Maybe somebody in the chat box can answer that, but that's also just not being like aware of where you're at in space, like almost like you're not in your own body and you almost like leave your current environment because it's so stressful because it's just your survival strategy. So those are a few ways dissociation can show up. So anyway, how do we stop trying to please people? How do we find this truth? How do we stand up to people that we're terrified of telling the truth to because we're terrified of their reaction, because we're terrified of separation, we're terrified of conflict, and yet we end up leaving ourselves. We end up lying to ourselves. We end up losing relationship to ourselves, and we end up having conflict with ourselves. So I need you to know that if you're trying to stop the fawning response, it's almost impossible if you're not connected to yourself energetically, emotionally, somatically. If you're not able to speak the truth, even to yourself, you've got to start with these things, okay? So finding the safety to be in your body, in the present moment, is going to be the first plan before you're able to have safety around others. And that's why in our work, in level 2, I say, in the Primal Trust mentorship, I say, I know a lot of you have relationship issues, but we need to start with your relationship with you, because you've got to stop fawning with yourself before you can stop fawning with others. So that's kind of a more of a level 3 process. So I'm going to work a lot on the level 2 approach of how we deal with fawning today. Level 1 is just awareness of this is what I'm doing. Level 2 is how do we start getting in the body? Okay. So, if you start, a lot of people are like, okay, I'm going to stop fawning and I'm going to be different with other people. I see that those results are often futile or even short lasting, because it's really not about them or these people that you're blaming that are making you fawn. It's not about them. It's more about you, because whoever you're in relationship with now that you might be fawning around. Well, first of all, let me ask this in the chat box. If you have somebody that you are fawning around or a relationship you're fawning around, put a 1 in the chat box just so I know how many people are actively experiencing this with others in their life. Okay, so I see a whole bunch of 1s coming up. So think about who you tend to not tell the truth to. And maybe it's like, other people outside of your circle that you tend to hide the truth from. Yeah, I see a ton of 1s in the chat box. Somebody's trying to quit. So let's talk a little bit about this. So it's not about them. It's not about them. Typically, fawning people blame the other. They won't let me tell the truth. They won't let me be myself. They won't let me get my needs met. They. And the truth is that you've probably fawned in some ways in your life way before you met them. We tend to blame our current partners or different people in our life now when they're just acting the energetic dynamic that was already set in our nervous system long before we met them. We attract that type of person in our life because it's part of our energy field. Okay. So it's really important to start recognizing it's not about them. It started before them. This isn't to say that that partner doesn't have work to do or to learn how to give you space and to respect you and to allow your relationship to allow for your self-expression. But they can't learn to give you that until you learn to give you that. That's just how it is. So don't put this responsibility on them, because then you're putting your power outside of yourself and you're becoming a victim. And that is not, that's the whole purpose of this training we do, is to get all of you out of any type of victim mentality and put you into a self-empowered state by understanding understanding what we're teaching here. So here's the deal. You have to empower you first. Okay. You have to empower you first. You have to shift, that shift of just recognizing that you have some of your own empowerment to stop fawning is going to change the way that those around you actually react to you, because you're changing your energy field. It's all an energy game, guys. This is all an energy game. I was just posting in the forum today about the drama triangle, the Cartman drama triangle. It's a game of typically victim, perpetrator, rescuer. And so you have to understand that's a game you're playing, and you need to empower yourself to pull out of victim into creator so that you can change the drama triangle in your life. You can Google that. I'm not going to go into that today in class, but I just want to say that this energy change in you will absolutely change the people around you that you feel like are oppressing you. Okay. All right. So now here's the challenge. I've just said put you first, but that's the biggest challenge, because the fawning response, the reaction your nervous system is creating in you, is to not put you first. And your nervous system is hardwired to not put you first. So what I'm going to recommend is to put you first, and that's going to feel very scary and foreign, and you're going to have a ton of resistance to doing it. You might have a lot of anxiety. You might have a lot of uncomfortable feelings by putting you first. And this is where we have to start. Okay. And you'll start with just even speaking the truth. I feel uncomfortable putting me first. So it's easier to be stuck in this relationship where I can at least blame them for oppressing me in these ways. Maybe you might say, I want to avoid meeting my needs, because when I feel my feelings and I feel my needs, it feels so bad. It's easier to just blame them for me not taking the time to develop this skill. Okay. I have things I am still working on with this. Over responding to the community, there's always ways where fawning has deeper and deeper layers. You learn it in relationship, you learn it with parents, you learn it, with others. And then, it's got lots of layers to it. So just know that it can be kind of a little bit of a life process, where you recognize, wow, my nervous system doesn't feel safe to put my needs first in this situation. And so it's a growth opportunity. Someone just wrote, well, what if you can't find your feelings? Well, that's because there's a few steps before that might need to happen. And we'll talk about that today. So let's talk about how we start to unravel the fawning response. I'm going to share my slides again here. Okay. How to start unraveling the fawning response. As I said, it starts with you first. Before you can even find your feelings, if someone's like, I don't know what they are, you need to find your feet. Okay. What I mean is that actually, I believe, in my experience with my own journey, I had to learn how to find my body. I had to learn how to find my feet. I had to learn how to ground my energy and get in touch consciously with my own energy field. And so I highly recommend it. If you are somebody who this sounds like you need to spend a good amount of time grounding your energy and literally feeling your feet, ideally on the ground. There's something that happens in your consciousness and your ability to connect to you and to your gut and to your own self. And actually practice walking and putting your heels on the ground, heel by heel, step by step. I am here. I am here. I am here. I am here. Your heels have a specific connection in your energy field that literally connect into the earth and create what I'd call a geomagnetic connection of consciousness of this is my body and I am in touch with the earth. You cannot find your feelings and speak your truth in these kind of situations if you can't even find your own body and your own breath. Okay, so we start right here, right now. So wherever you guys are, I mean, even right now, let's just do this. Like stand up, probably can't see me. Put your heels on the ground. Touch your heels on the ground, and each touch, I am here. I am here. Feel your feet. I am here. Connect into the earth, to the floor. Feel your body right here through your heels. See yourself connected to your environment. All right. The next thing when you're standing, so sometimes you just got to get out of the situation you're fawning around and literally feel your heels on the ground, and then start to feel your body in space. So maybe you kind of take a step to the front right quadrant of you, and you're like, I feel my space here. I feel my heels. I feel my space here. Maybe it's to the front left quadrant, and you just kind of go back and forth, and you just feel where you are. You start to feel your environment, and even backwards to the left, step back, feel your energy space here. Step to the right and back. So you're kind of feeling your body in space, which is orienting you, and feeling your heels on the ground. I am here now in this moment, in this body, and I'm connected to the ground. Because fawning people tend to really lose connection. Okay, you come back to your seat. We lose connection with our body. We lose our sense of space. We lose our sense of our environment. We literally lose time, space, reality. Time, space, reality. We have to come into the present moment. I am here. It is April 13th of 2022. I am right here now in this moment. Come back in. That's how we start. We can't find our feelings if we don't even know where we're at in space, and we can't find our body. Okay? So orienting yourself to the moment. It's just starting there. And you do this enough times, what's going to happen, especially when you're in a conversation, feeling your heels on the ground, you just start there. We're not even going to start speaking our truth yet to them. You're just going to start finding your own body and recognizing I'm right here, right now. It takes many repetitions of doing this, but what's going to happen is your nervous system is going to start registering where you are in space when you are in proximity to these people that you're fawning. You're going to practice it on your own, and you practice this with others, just feeling your heels in the conversations that you tend to fawn into. Just that simple brings your brain, prefrontal cortex, a little more in line and orients you to the environment. Okay, what happens is you put your heels on the ground, you feel your heels, your consciousness directs your energy down through your body, down into the earth, and you actually start flowing your energy. And when you start flowing your energy, you have access once again to your truth, and you have access to your gut and to your feelings. Because again, fawning is disorienting, disorganized, scattered energy flow. Getting just your feet on the ground, which we work on in level 1 in the energy medicine class and the somatics class, getting your feet on the ground is the beginning of being oriented, organized, and flowing your energy. Okay, so just going, learning about fawning and saying, oh, I'm going to speak my truth to this person. That's not likely to happen if you're not even in your body. Okay. So next thing, so I also want to say, so feet on the ground, feeling your breath. That's the other thing I wrote here. Breathing, feet and breath. That's all you're focusing on at first in these conversations. It's not even about standing up for yourself yet. It's about literally standing and breathing and sensing you as your own organism, your own self in relationship to what's going on. And that will be very difficult for some of you because you've got a nervous system that's been protecting you for a long time from feeling yourself in conflict, from feeling in situations that are scary. So that simple practice of connection may be a little scary. So you just start incrementally feeling your feet and breathing. Okay, that's all you need to do in this first level. As you start to do that, the other thing that I also recommend is somatic practices to help you connect to your feelings and to your truth. And that's why we have a lot of somatic practices here in the Primal Trust Academy and community. We've got Michelle's somatics classes. We've got Chasma's classes. We've got my somatics class in level 1 and class 3. Because I know that as you do some of these classes, you are going to find your body. You're going to find your breath. You're going to find your feet. And then you'll be able to return to that again when you get into one of these situations where you tend to want to leave. So that's why somatics is a crucial piece in my experience of developing Primal Trust, because it's so important to be able to feel safe, to come at least be present in our body, even if we can't yet speak our truth. Okay. So somatic practices, absolutely huge in this early stage of unraveling the fawning response. Another thing that I recommend, creating a safe space to be in and find yourself in, your own little cocoon. I know a couple people in here have created their own little diva den, their own little space that is just for them. No one else gets to enter. It is their own energy field so that they can find themselves again. Maybe it's a closet. I had a closet for a while that I put my stuff in, and it was my space. No one else could enter. It's where I journaled. It was like the beginning of recreating me again. Okay. And what happens is you create this space in your home. Maybe it's a corner of a room. Maybe it's outside under a tree. I don't know, wherever it needs to be. It's going to be a space where your nervous system is going to allow you to start orienting to your environment again, because it's just you. It's just your energy field. And I teach orienting in class 3 of level 1, right? So orienting is one of the most important things you can do to start getting your somatic nervous system, your body, feeling safe by being in a familiar environment, knowing what's here, knowing what's around you, putting your favorite things, much like this picture here on the screen. She's just surrounded by all of these yummy things here. You know, she's got her cute little hammock chair, her plants, her books. Create that for yourself. Love yourself enough to give yourself your own little space where it's safe to feel your feelings. It's safe to find your body and your breath. One person wrote just now, a Zen den. Yes. Falguni says it's the best thing I ever did. Right. So these are all beginning responses of how to start managing the fawning response. Your nervous system isn't just going to flip this switch. You've got to create a safety and a trust for it to do it. And it starts with you, your energy, your body, and your space. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Let's see. What else do I want to say? I've got one more thing here. Okay. A couple things. Authenticity and truth. It starts with you. I like this little picture where she's facing herself off and she's got the Pinocchio nose, because she has to learn where she's been inauthentic, where she hasn't been telling the truth even to herself. That's the thing, you guys. This response, we actually habitually lie to ourselves because it's easier than feeling the truth of how our needs are so unmet. And we got to wake back up that truth. So you start by telling yourself the truth of the situation. Okay, that's acknowledging and admitting the fawn response. And you might just say to yourself, I'm not able to even speak how I feel because I want to avoid conflict. I want them to like me or whatever. Tell the truth to yourself based on this awareness that we're having in class. I'm not able to even speak because I'm afraid of conflict or whatever it might be, or I want them to like me, whatever that might be. And maybe you write about that and you just write the truth. Let yourself see it. Telling yourself the truth of how you feel. So this is the next stage. As you start doing the things I just described in the previous slide, your true feelings will start to bubble up. They might not bubble up right away, but they will as you keep asking yourself. But you got to ask yourself, if I weren't afraid to know the truth, what do I actually feel about this situation? What is it that I'm hiding that I don't want to see? And you might come up with some things. I don't like how this feels when I don't speak up. I don't like this. I don't like that. I actually want to do this, or this is my need. Who knows? You're going to discover a whole bunch of stuff in there that you've been stuffing that absolutely restricts your life force. This pattern, can you see how it would be so restrictive to your life force energy because it's out of integrity, which means your energy fields are confused. You're not even in your body, so your energy field can't even run through to turn on your detox pathways and regulate. It's huge, you guys. This is so big. And telling yourself the truth of what you want to say or do. So at least start being authentic with you, not them, just you. Daily discernment of your own needs, your own desires, your to-dos. And we have kind of a process in level 2 called the daily structure sheet process in class 4 that we start to do this with. So this is about building integrity with you first. I had a practitioner that had me every morning make myself my favorite cup of tea, sit down and write out all my needs. And it was so difficult and I hated it. I hated feeling them. I even hated making myself the cup of tea because it felt so indulgent to do that. And I would cry and shake just even trying to pick out a tea to make. It felt that bad trying to meet my needs. And that was huge awareness. It's huge awareness when you see how much it's painful to take care of yourself. Then you're like, whoa, this is ground zero issues. You're spending all your time learning about limbic system impairment and your illness and this and that, when the answer is right here. Look how painful it is just to love yourself enough to make a cup of tea and figure out what your needs are, to be truthful to yourself. Being truthful to yourself is going to start opening up your chakra system and your meridians and your organ systems, and your brain is going to light up. Truth to yourself is a huge stage of healing, even if you can't stand up to that person. So don't think you need to be perfectly out of fawn in order to start healing this process and getting your nervous system to calm down and your energy to flow. It's these simple things that I just said. They're simple, but they're going to be difficult for some of you. And they're going to be painful even sometimes. They were painful for me. Okay. Lastly, or not lastly, almost lastly, let's talk a little bit about resentment and blame, shall we? Versus taking responsibility. This is a big one because there is a huge society out there that loves to perpetuate victim consciousness and to justify the woe is me mentality of how mean your spouse is and how mean your dad was and this and that. And not that they weren't mean, but there is a responsibility inside of you that you're missing out on if you let these programs and people that are frankly disempowering you, keeping you from owning what your side is. You're all grown up now. You have the responsibility as an adult to develop your integrity, your truth, your authenticity, to speak the truth, even if it pisses somebody off. That is your responsibility. You're not a little child and you can handle it. Okay. And I'm saying that bluntly because it's so important. So let's talk about this. How is fawning or people pleasing or saying yes when you mean no actually keeping you stuck in illness patterning, or at least energetically closed and unhappy? Ask yourself that, like, what's happening here as I do this, as I close my energy field down, as I people please, and I'm out of integrity, and frankly, I'm lying. Okay. What do you think is happening in your body? And is avoiding conflict really worth it? Because guess what? You're actually still in conflict with you. you're actually still in conflict with you. You're not avoiding conflict. You're not avoiding conflict at all. And really, are you happier and healthier by being in resentment and being free of the external conflict? Really, are you happier and healthier avoiding all this conflict and people pleasing? How is it working for you? That's what Dorothy would say to you all. How is it working for you? I see in the chat box, somebody said, well, what if speaking my truth causes fight and flight symptoms and dissociation after finding presence in myself? Well, if speaking your truth, it might have a temporary kickback because your protection response is hardwired against this. Otherwise, you'd be speaking your truth. So this is something you need to incrementally work on, you guys. But let's say that happens. You get this kickback, right? And that's what you're saying. Like, what if I get a kickback? Well, I am saying that you're getting a kickback anyway. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in this program. You're not feeling well anyway. You're not feeling well. But I can tell you that making these steps to start finding your feet, finding your energy, finding your breath, speaking your truth to yourself, you start there. So this person who just mentioned this, that I'm getting fight flight symptoms when I try to speak my truth to others, start with yourself. And yes, even finding presence in yourself might have a little bit of kickback, totally normal, but it's a process to get through. And at least now you know where you're going. Wow, I need to be able to speak the truth to myself. I need to be able to feel my feet on the ground. I'm spending all my days doing all these tools and these practices, but I need to just come right home. It's sometimes the simple answers that are the most healing processes and pathways. So are you really happier being in connection with this person that you can't even be yourself around? Really? Are you happier being free of the conflict than being authentic? It's a question to ask. Truth serum time. This whole thing is going to lead to more awareness and choice. How can you actually feel better, be happier, if you were to release blame for them and for you, and take responsibility to shift the situation by using these tools we touched on today? Instead of blaming them where they make it where you can't do this, how can you take responsibility? Because this situation, I guarantee, started long before them. And you do have the capacity to do this, and you have the tools, and now you have the understanding, and it might take some time, but you've got a whole community here to support you, of people who are on the same journey to become accountable with. And maybe you find an accountability partner to work on this stuff. But it's really important to start working on it. And I've given you some really simple ways to start doing that. So let's just summarize them. You're going to learn how to track your own thoughts and feelings. And the way that you do that is through finding your breath, finding your guts, how you actually feel, finding your body, finding your feet. This helps you to find your feelings and ultimately find your truth. So today, we're not going to talk about how you talk to your partner, to your friend, or to your parents who are making it difficult. We're just talking about how you talk to you. You stop fawning to yourself, and then that will open up the window to be in authenticity and integrity with others. So that is the summary of the class. We're going to do an attunement in a few minutes, but before we go into that, if there's any questions about this, it's a huge topic. I'm sure we could talk about it for hours, but I'm just going to touch on a couple questions. Then we'll go into the attunement. And if there's more questions, you can continue them in the forum and study groups. This is just something to keep your mind on. Okay. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, I had a question about, sorry. Am I echoing?
You're good. You're fine.
Okay. About trying, or how we should deal with people that see us in this new light. So like, I've had times where I feel like I was able to step out of the fawning experience, and then people who are used to you being the fawn and just kind of going along with it then are like, whoa, what happened to you? Like, and it's not harsh. It's just honest and not going along with what they want. So how would you,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
it's a good question. And we're going to actually address it a little bit in the attunement today, because we need to show your subconscious that you're going to get kickback and people are maybe going to misunderstand you and want you the other way. But how you deal with it is you feel how you feel inside of you. I feel better off and safer with this new strength, even though it's causing this turbulence a little bit around me. I feel my energy flow. So right now you might have a little uncertainty about that, but if you can become more certain that you are actually better off and safer being misunderstood, disappointed in, because your own energy field is flowing, you're not going to care what they think. And this is stuff that Dorothy is really good at teaching about. So for those of you who don't know Dorothy, definitely take her classes. She's got some great things to say about this. So you're not going to care because you're going to feel better and you're going to feel in your own feet and you're going to know that you're in alignment. And that's their growth and their journey to now go on, is to be around somebody who's in integrity, because it can be very uncomfortable for people who are often not in integrity themselves or used to being more of that bully. And it's just part of the deal. You get to be a little disruptive. So good
thank
question.
you.
Sure. Hi, Kenya. I see you had lots
Hi.
of things to say in the chat box.
Yes, I didn't realize I'm a little fawn. So my question is really relating down to, I can't even imagine at this point speaking my truth without physically in this moment feeling my heart start racing, my hands get clammy. So, and even I've practiced a lot of somatic grounding and breathing. Therapeutic yoga was wonderful for bringing me back in my body. But when it comes to actually go time, all right, this is a moment, time to speak your truth. You're not going to just fawn. And I feel like it's impossible. And even just imagining it. So what's like I don't know, what would be some practical steps in that moment to be me and be okay being me?
One of them is an exploration of what you feel like the worst thing is going to happen because you've spoken your truth. Because on some level, that reaction is still happening because a part of you thinks something really bad will happen because you're speaking your truth. So you need to explore, like, what's the truth about what's the worst that can happen here? Like becoming conscious of, oh, a part of me thinks they're going to like leave me and abandon me and they'll never ever come back. How likely is that? How likely is that? So you're going to have to start to become a little aware of what you're afraid of. And the attunement today might help with that. And continuing with the Primal Trust work will continue to help with that. And the other attunements, you can even use this kind of learning to set up your attunements in the future of, I want to be able to speak my truth and I'm afraid to speak my truth. And so, as you set that up, you'll become more aware of what's actually the risk here. Because as a child, we tend to think if our parents go away, we're dead, and that's not the case anymore. We're not actually like totally dependent on somebody else for our absolute survival. So you've got to catch your subconscious up to the current reality. But the other thing is, in the meantime, before speaking to others, I would really practice rehearsing situations and speaking in the mirror and speaking out loud, because there can even be a trigger by just speaking out loud can trigger the limbic system to be like, that's not safe. You just spoke this out loud. So you start by speaking what you would say out loud in a mirror, so that your brain starts to actually hear you use your vocal cords in these ways to be speaking these things. And you start to train yourself. Look, I can actually speak this. They might not be here, but just the speech alone is a type of like vagal retraining of like your nervous system being like, whoa, she just spoke that out loud, even if no one was there. So you start there. You're a few steps away from, the whole empowerment thing. So maybe work on some of these other steps. And I should have put that as one of the examples of something to do, is to practice, in addition to the breathing and the grounding and the space, speaking out loud what you want to say in front of a mirror, seeing yourself speak it, posturing, teaching the nervous system how to speak it, like an acting class almost, so that you can get practice. And then when you do start speaking, it might be just like one little thing. Maybe it's like, I feel like I need to do this today, and that would be best for me. Maybe you weren't even in a conversation, but you practice speaking your need out loud in a way that you normally wouldn't have, the way that you normally would have hidden. But they're like, and they'll be like, oh, okay, kind of surprised that you spoke out loud, but it wasn't an actual conflict, but it was on the way to being more in truth. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah, that's really great. And I really appreciate that. I think I used to do that. I did. I used to kind of, in the front of the mirror kind of posture and speak to the other person. And then I went to DNRS and they said that that was a limbic loop where, are you having arguments by yourself? Are you engaging in conversations by yourself? So I stopped doing that. But I guess maybe it was a way of releasing, that and standing in my power. Maybe I couldn't say it to the person, but I would say it in the shower,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the deal is, maybe, I don't know who said that to you, but maybe it was like what you were saying. So like, for example, if you were blaming them, maybe that's a limbic loop. But if you're actually speaking your needs from a empowered place of grace and nobility, and it even can be kind, you can speak it. This doesn't mean to like not be kind. Someone said earlier, well, what about being kind? So are you saying to be kind, you need to lie? You can speak truth and be kind at the same time. You can speak with a kind voice. And so I think this is, someone wrote in the thing, it's mental rehearsal. That's exactly what this is. And so I would disagree with that statement from DNRS about that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. One more question, Tammy, and then we're going to do the attunement. And I know there's a million questions. We'll just have to do that on the forum. Hi, Tammy.
Hi. Well, then someone else, you can take someone else. I was just going to comment or just say that in the moments when I've actually said something that I needed to say, that actually strengthened. Like I trusted myself more because I was willing to be in that moment. And then the only other thing I would say for people who are in relationship, and it depends what your relationship is in that dynamic, but my husband knows I'm going through something. I mean, he's lived with me for 10 years. And so I will say to him, look, this is going to be messy. I don't know how to do this. So I use your words of it's messy. I'm not going to do it perfectly, but I'm trying to find and figure out how to even say the words because I don't know what the words are yet. And so letting them know, and that's speaking honestly, right? Because you're letting them know that you don't know it yet, but this is what I'm working towards and trying to figure out.
I think those
if that helps anyone.
I think that's great. And see, this is why you guys are going to be able to help each other because many of you are working on this and are further along. So please like bring this up in the forum and the study groups, etc. Informing the people in our life, hey, I'm working on developing my own integrity and strength because it's what I need to heal. And if they're in your life and they're really supportive of you, even if they're, typically the conflict creator, they're going to respect that you want to get better and you want your truth to flow through. And frankly, I think people want to hear what's true for you, even if it makes them mad. So, I think that's a great point is to just tell them, I'm going on this journey. It might be messy. I might mess up sometimes. And the other thing that you touched on, which I appreciated, you said that when you did speak the truth, you felt more empowered. And here's the deal. Some part of Primal Trust is you guys are going to learn how to hold the tensions of the opposites, which means that it doesn't mean that your nervous system is always calm, but you're going to be in alignment. Now, can you find a way to hold the paradox of I am doing something that's in alignment, but my nervous system's scared at the same time? That's imperturbability. It doesn't mean that you don't feel fear and stress. You'll learn more about this in class 7 of level 2. Holding the tensions of the opposites. I'm speaking my truth and I'm having anxiety and shaking at the same time. And part of you is like, oh, I shouldn't have spoken my truth because it made me limbic. No, you're carving two pathways at once. You're lighting up the pathway of this isn't safe. You're also lighting up the pathway of it is safe to speak my truth. And that's what I choose. But the body hasn't caught up yet. You got to give the body time to catch up with your new rules, the new ways you're going to live. So you're going to live in both at the same time. It's going to feel icky and painful. And at the same time, you're going to walk away with that conversation feeling self-respect. And when you feel self-respect, you turn on your energy flow and you turn on your healing. You feel scared as shit and you feel self-respect. There's healing in that. So you got to remember that it's both. It's both. So trying to do this to avoid the fear part, that's just not the journey. I'm trying to teach you how to hold both. Make sense? Easy peasy? All right. It isn't, I know it's not that easy. And that's why we have a whole mentorship that's long and in depth to teach you how to hold both. But it is that simple. So I think we're going to move on to the attunement. I'm going to make a separate recording and we will go from there.